Hello and welcome to another magical filled episode of Movie Match Reviews on YouTube. Today's review is the 6th season of Once Upon a Time. So like all the other seasons, this season picks up where the 5th one left off with Jekyll and Hyde, and turns out that Emma's time as the savior is almost up. Learn from Jafar and Cold Open. Well, not necessarily Cold Open. We see Aladdin a couple more times. That all saviors are destined to die. I know, that's pretty grim. Grim. So like the other two, the season is split up into halves, but it's a cohesive arc, like the first two seasons were because 3, 4, and 5 were when they started doing the arcs. But in 4, that's when they were making the story arc per season rule, but they were doing it in a way that was a little bit more cohesive and make the arcs better connect. So the first couple of episodes deal with stuff, the Land of Untold Stories, which, like I said before, was introduced at the end of season 5. And like I said, so introduced before, and then in Changelings, the overall story arc that was building across all these seasons becomes more apparent with the Black Fairy, who was the off-screen villain when the first couple of seasons, and takes center stage towards the end. And the fall half. That's the fall half. The spring half continues with the Rumple and Bella's lost son is the dragon-in-chief of this whole thing. He's the hooded man who attacks Emma in her visions in the first half. And by the way, there will be some spoilers in this. It's like, and also like before, we got the usual lunch stick of Disney character adaptations. We see Cinderella gets her own backstory episode. The last time she got one was way back in the first. Aladdin and Jasmine, like I said, got prominence, and they actually said that they wanted Aladdin and Jasmine in a lot earlier. It's like, I think it was for second season, same thing with Ariel, but Disney didn't give them clearance to adapt them. And finally they said for the spin-off, okay, you can adapt elements into Wonderland. That's where Jafar, it's like that's how Jafar comes in. And they said that with Jafar they were still treating his Wonderland appearances as canon, but we're not going to let you have Aladdin and Jasmine. And then so finally they pitched it again, and they said that, and finally they had the clearance to adapt. And truth be told, that kind of worried me going in. Where are they going to give them the lion's share of the screen time despite something else going on? Surprisingly, no. It was sort of like Merida. when they adapted Brave for 5, yeah, they were in there, but they also knew, don't shove them in where they don't belong. Long. So, like, for example, when Aladdin has Jasmine wish to take her back to Agrabah, they're gone for almost half of the show. For half of the second act, we see them again just to tie off that subplot, and then they're gone again, and then they come back for the finale again. Like I said, with Merida, that's an example of them learning that we know you have this habit of shoving Disney characters that you didn't get clearance to adapt beforehand in, but you kind of also have to know not to shove them in there when they don't belong. So, as a whole, and again, like I said before, despite the fact that this season feels like it's the last one, there is a little cliffhanger to it that was supposed to lead into like another season, but it's like a soft reboot. The story was that they weren't treating 6 as the last season, and later on they said that season 6 was going to end the main story arc that had been building up, and then if they got renewed for another season, they were going to go into a soft reboot with a new story arc. That's where half of the cast leaves, but the overall core of the show is still intact. Some are actually saying that the writers actually wrote that as the finale, and then when they heard that they got renewed, they tacked those 2 bits in there as some kind of a lead-in. So, season as a whole was fine. I liked the fact that we got to go into the mythology of the Saviors a little bit, and there's another revelation that another character, which I'm not going to give away, was supposed to be in that line, but something happened, and he was kicked out of the line. So I kind of liked so I liked the fact that we got to see a couple more saviors and a little bit more of the line, and the consequences of holding that duty or something. What I didn't like about the season was, and my sentiment is kind of shared with some of the general public, was the writing. It kind of seemed like they were contradicting their own lore, even though their general shtick is that they give it in bits and pieces anyway, and it's up to us to kind of give it a chronological order, sort of like One Piece. It's like a huge piece jigsaw puzzle, and from what I've read and from what I've seen in prior seasons, it's kind of like they make these things like stick out and more, and it's almost like, well, if we didn't see it, we can say, okay, it happened this way, or it could happen that way. So yeah, the writing in this season was almost like they were scraping the bottom of the barrel a little bit and contradicting their own lore. And they said that they actually used to keep timelines in their writer's room, but they found that they got so convoluted that it's like, well, okay, screw the timeline. Let's do our own thing. And again, it's like, and the acting, some of it this season kind of just felt really phoned in. And like, some of them were losing interest in doing of the show, and the people, it's like, were kind of like phone it in and get a paycheck and that's it. And it's like Emma Swan herself felt like she was phoning it in a little bit. The ones who kind of actually stayed on actually weren't phoning it in. And so yeah, this season was not bad, but it wasn't good either. It's kind of almost like they should have just left it here and not do another one. But when you have a franchise that takes a lot of money, what are you going to do? So that was season 6 of Once Upon a Time. So check the channel for my previous stuff. The next review will be another installment of 2 copies. Bees, with the case being Fantasia. So this movie Matt signing off.